And welcome to another exciting episode of the Super Fantastic Exchange. Guys, I can't tell you how excited I am. Today, I get to bring to you none other than Dr. Laura Kellers. Guys, just super excited Dr. Queen. Just super excited to share with her share with you guys a conversation about what inspires her, because she wrote an incredible book that really, it's a smart book, and it just has so much incredible wealth of information. But before we get to that, I want Dr. Laura to share a little bit about herself and introduce herself a little more.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. And I'm so pleased to be with you, Gary, and all of your audience members. A little bit about me. So I consider myself a professional problem solver. And as we talk about the book, you'll understand that's actually kind of how the book came to be. In my professional life, I use that insatiable curiosity to work alongside financial and other investors with businesses as they're moving through the mergers and acquisitions transition. And how that manifests for me is the ability to go into organizations and spend time taking a look at their human capital capabilities, ask lots of really interesting questions, dig into how their businesses operate, understand both what the investment or deal thesis is for an organization, and match that to some degree to the employee experience and to the business imperatives. So love that. Personally, I am married to my soulmate. I refer to him often as my knight in shining armor. Together, we have 3 amazing children, and there are 3 incredible significant others. And I just have to share with everyone that our best and probably forever greatest Christmas gift was our first grandchild this year. So it's been such an exciting ride for us the last few months.
That is awesome. Congratulations on the first grandchild. I know that's got to be incredibly exciting. So I've got a 25-year-old son, and who knows, someday I'll get to be a grandfather. But I love how you talk about being a professional problem solver, and your kind of conversation about how you support and consult with companies as they go through acquisitions and mergers and so forth. And I believe, because when I've worked, I've been able to go through some acquisitions and dispositions, and there's always an impact on the people and that experience. And that's one of the things that I truly love about your book, People Economics. Guys, if you get a chance, get this book. It really will it creates a really neat perspective. And Dr. Laura, one of the things I loved in here, and I'm going to read a quote if you don't mind.
Sure.
Out of the book is, human capital represents an organization's distinctive character and competitive advantage. And that quote spoke to me just simply because I think a lot of times in business, we truly just focus on that budget. We focus on the product. We focus on, the revenue stream, and we miss the opportunities to focus on the human capital that helps create that. And we see, and you talk about how, are we looking at our associates, our employees, as a line item, as an expense? Or are we looking at them as an asset? And I'd love for you to talk just a little bit about what that means, where human capital and that experience helps a company overall through all kinds of conditions.
Sure. So I touch on this a little bit in the book, and it's really interesting. I'll give a little bit of a macroeconomic framework around this, just because I think it's fascinating. So when you think about the way GAAP rules for accounting were established, and when specifically they were established, they were intended to help reflect an organization's market capitalization or value in a marketplace around things that were primarily tangible. They were looking at things like inventory turns or facilities that were owned, or the volume of widgets that could be produced, all of those kinds of things, the very specific material assets, right? It was also at a time when we were primarily an industrial economy, which totally made sense.
Sure.
As I was doing the research for the book, I came across a really interesting piece that takes a look at the market value of organizations in in the arc from 1975-ish until 2018, 2019. Mm-hmm. And what has happened is intangible assets actually inversely connect to the market value of organizations, such that in the 1970s, 90% of an organization of the S&P 500 value was created by tangible assets.
Right.
90% of that value today is created by knowledge, workers, intangible assets. Think culture, the trust that consumers have in our brand, the value that's being created through creativity, innovation, art, right? All of those kinds of things. But none of that is captured in the current set of financial algorithms and arithmetic machinations that get used to attribute value to organizations.
That's incredible. And that's one of the things that I think is there's a shift, and I will not be able to speak it as eloquently as you do, but it's, there's a shift in the value of what we're thinking versus of what we're producing. And I think our accounting principles, and I touch on a very small portion of this, is very old school still about the product. And I love how you're able to kind of say, hey, there is a shift in the product. It's more on a thinking, mindset basis versus a product basis. And so I love how your book, guys, again, People Economics is such a smart book. Grab a copy of it, read through it. I can't tell you, these are my notes from this book, just simply because it was just so fascinating to me, the conversation in there. But, Dr. Laura, you're incredibly inspiring. And I love, someone that can write a book, someone that can inspire others to think differently. And so what fascinates me is, for somebody that can inspire others, what inspires you? And so I gotta, I reached out to you and asked you, okay, what are the things that inspire you? And you shared with me two pretty fascinating points. And the first one I want to get to is, what inspires you is reframing about having a seat at the table. Because for so long, we've always talked about having a seat at the table, but you said what inspires you is reframing that, because it's time to do away with the table. That's, Dr. Laura, you got to expand on that one a little bit, and how this inspires you.
So I'll share an example. It's a story that I actually put in the book, but I'll share this example to you by way of saying, the table gets in the way, right? It does. Lots of decisions, lots of cogitation about how our businesses operate and create value or destroy value and whatnot happening in the vacuum of the table, really, I think, cuts us off from the stuff that I think really matters. So I'll give you this one example. A number of years ago, we were asked by a strategic acquirer to go in and learn about an organization that they were looking to purchase. And in this particular case, the organization was a carve-off from a much larger global organization. So they were selling a singular facility to this acquirer. What the acquiring business was most interested to understand was whether or not there were individuals, specific key individuals, that they should be allowing or affording some kind of retention bonus to, because they might be really critical to the ongoing nature or business continuity of this particular operation. We were super lucky in this particular instance to have access to all of the employees. The entire employee population was aware that this transaction was going to happen. So we had relatively unfettered access to the employee population. And we spent time talking with about 20% of them in small groups. And one of the questions, a singular question we asked them was, what would make your life here more productive? What would contribute to higher levels of productivity? In all of the groups, we conducted 19 focus groups. And in all of the groups, everyone said to us, could you just give us better Wi-Fi bandwidth? And I thought, oh, okay, well, I know that I can't get a cell phone signal in this business, but why is it important to you? And this is where, like putting on your hat of insatiable curiosity is really helpful, right? So we got super curious and we started asking them, give us examples, help us understand how and where Wi-Fi bandwidth would be helpful to you. Yeah. And they said to us, listen, our parent organization, they were a pharmaceutical manufacturing facility, and our parent organization created this really awesome new required GMP training we have to take, except that we have to stream the audio and the video, and we can't stream it because our bandwidth is so crappy in this physical environment. We have to get in our cars with our laptops, drive to the nearest like Panera or Starbucks, or 10 miles down the road to the next closest physical operating facility to be able to take the training. So we asked them, okay, so what actually is happening? How often is that happening for you? How many times are you skipping the required training, which is a really big issue? Yeah. All of that kind of stuff. And we were able, back of the envelope, to calculate that the loss of productive time just to take this training was 5 hours per person per training in a 299 person facility, plus or minus. Yeah. Doing a bit of back of the envelope calculation, just keeping them in their seats would have saved the organization $364,000. Reduced the amount of frustration these employees had, increased the level of compliance with the training for an investment of $364.
Wow.
So we went back to the acquirer and we said, day of closing, the first thing you do is go in and put Wi-Fi signal enhancement in that facility. What we learned afterwards, we went back and spent some time with the employees afterwards, and they said that single investment of $364 plus whatever the labor was to get these things done was this monumental investment in the employee experience of the acquiring organization. Their voices were heard. They believed that the leadership valued what they had to say about the productive use of their time in the environment and were willing to make a minor investment in dollars, but a massive investment in them and their work experience, right?
Wow.
That doesn't happen behind a table. Understanding how value is created or destroyed, what is important to the organization, only happens when you get up from the table and you spend time with your employees, with your clients and customers, with your trade partners, with your vendors and suppliers. It only happens in that space when you ask the question and elicit the response. If we only do this sitting at a table on the basis of what we think we know, we operate with hubris and we actually destroy value.
Wow. And that's the vacuum of the table that you spoke about earlier. That's incredible that a $364, call it $500 investment with labor and everything, changed the engagement levels of the employees for this incoming acquisition. I mean, that's unbelievable, but simply because you asked a question and you took action on that I believe, and it's probably immeasurable, the other things that you've uncovered through conversations, focus groups, where just simply by listening and identifying what they value most and what can you do, and doing those things really make a difference to, I go back to that phrase, human capital, where if you value them and you do things for them, then their level of engagement elevates, and there's more success opportunities because they're engaged with that company.
Yeah, it translates directly to the experience of the organization, both internally and externally, right? We know higher levels of employee engagement translate to higher levels of customer satisfaction. If I'm happier in the work that I'm doing, and if I feel I have greater authority and autonomy over the way in which I do the work that I do, I am much more likely to represent myself well, to support the client interaction in some important way, to feel the freedom to make mistakes as an innovator in an organization, knowing that those mistakes are met with positive performative reinforcement around the work that I'm doing, right? All of those things contribute to greater levels of value. I mean, you can follow through. Anyone who's acquiring or investing in an organization is much more likely to invest in an organization that has a higher NPS score and a greater trust barometer score than an organization that doesn't. Well, that doesn't happen because you have a pretty brand on the outside of your building or because you have fabulous advertising all by itself, right? It happens because there are people that are creating the thing that you're selling or are ensuring quality or, creating consumer delight. All of those things, but that happens through the human being. Yeah,
that's the human capital, because you're creating that safe environment for them to own the things that they need to do. And it's okay to make mistakes, learn from it, move on, but it's okay because you're in that safe environment to do so. But it's also that mindset or that thought process is it gives the empowerment to the team to do things that they wouldn't normally do without being told to do something.
Right.
So love it. Oh my gosh, Dr. Laura, that's fantastic stuff. All right. So the next thing that you talked about is the Great Reset. And one of the phrases you shared with me about what inspires you is amidst all the chaos are true gifts. And I'm intrigued about why this or how this Great Reset inspires you and where the gifts come from in the chaos.
Yeah. So I think in the very early stages of, we'll call it 2020, we all sort of had the opportunity, even if it was in very small moments, to kind of drop back and say, okay, what are the things that are most important to me, right? Mm-hmm. And from a very personal standpoint, there was a place where my husband and I we still fundamentally work from home. We're 50 feet apart from each other on opposite sides of the house, and some days don't see each other at all. But we took that opportunity to get up, walk in the morning, build a wildflower garden, certify our backyard as a National Wildlife Federation habitat, do some things that we really, were really important to us. And we were able to carve out time to do it together because we weren't literally jetting off in other places, right?
Yeah.
And then there was this place on a walk one morning where I said to him, there are aspects of what we're doing that I don't love. I feel constrained and I feel confined, but there are other aspects of what we're doing, the way we have recreated our lives, personally, professionally, with our family members, that I really don't want to lose touch with. It's a new way of being. Mm-hmm. What do we have to do to preserve aspects of that way of being, because they make us feel more whole? We connect with who we are. We're connecting with the earth better. We're connecting with our partners and our peers better. Even just in terms of the way we establish relationships with our clients, I realized at one point, almost all of our interactions with one of our clients, actually two of our clients, were happening by a conference call. The old sit in the conference room, spider phone, talk to people, there were times when honestly I wished for like a hologram so you could see the people you were talking to. But I had developed long-term relationships with people working remotely that I had never physically seen before. The only visual representation of who they were I had ever seen was by going out to their LinkedIn profile and friending them, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that happened during this period of time was the advent of video technology like we're using right now to establish a face-to-face relationship with people. Mm-hmm. Yes, I recognize, and I clearly suffer from the overload of video interaction with people, but it also developed a level of intimacy with our clients and with our peers that we didn't have. You're in a home office, right? And you can see the artwork that I choose for myself personally. That level of intimacy is a gift. It makes us more human to each other. And so being really conscious and grateful about those moments and reframing how chaos can feel so destabilizing, but allowing that destabilization to create an opportunity for evolution in your personal life, in your business, in your relationships with other people, in framing for yourself what matters, what's important, is so huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly believe that this chaos created that opportunity, as you put it, the Great Reset, for us to really sit back and say, okay, what is most important to me? And, as you and your husband did, taking walks, creating a garden, working from home. And now we have this level of, like you said, intimacy, which creates authenticity of the person that we're connecting with. Because now I see, a glimpse into your home. It's just a small window, a small peek into your home. But now, there's a different level of authenticity from just a audio phone call or sitting in a sterile office. There's a lot more connection to that individual person. But it all stemmed from the Great Reset, or the chaos that ensued to create something new of value to each individual person. Mm-hmm. Dr. Laura, I could talk to you all day long. You are absolutely amazing, but we're getting close. We're at the end of our time, and I would love for you to share a closing thought with us before we wrap up here.
So as I went back and looked at the 2 pieces of inspiration I shared with you, I was trying to figure out for me, what were the themes that, was there a common theme that came out of it? And I think for me, it's 2 things. I very much want to be a difference maker, a positive influence for individuals, for organizations, and, perhaps for society at large. The themes that come up for me are really around perspective and that paradigm shift, right? Yeah. And one of the things, and I share quotes from both of these authors, individuals in the book, but it's a really important paradigm shift for me. And it's that idea. We've been conditioned to believe, particularly in more recent business world, that leadership is about empathy. And I think that is true. I would argue that it doesn't go far enough. And both Ibram Kendi and Nassim Taleb have a view about what being anti-something is, right? And truly being anti-something means adopting a perspective of being pro-something else, pro-positive change, pro-stakeholder capitalism, whatever. Yeah. But taking that place of empathy and using it to change the paradigm so that you become pro-something that forces action, that creates movement. Because having empathy is an important precursor to being in that place, but it's not enough to create or facilitate that paradigm change. So we all need to figure out what we are pro from a positive sense, and then enliven, enrich, put energy behind being pro something to make those positive changes.
That is so good, Dr. Laura. I can't thank you enough. Guys, please go grab this book, People Economics. You can find it. How can people get in touch with you, Dr. Laura?
Sure, a couple of different ways. My Twitter handle is @PeopleEcon. You can find me on LinkedIn, Laura Keller's Queen, or professionally, laura.queen@29bison.com, my professional email address. The book is available from just about every book reseller. So Amazon, BookBaby, I recommend BookBaby, but others, Barnes & Noble and other places. So please, please, please get out there, share the messages.
Oh my gosh, guys, I can't tell you, it's such a wonderful book. There's so many thought-provoking conversations in this book. You've got some guest contributing authors in the book as well that really bring some powerful points as well. And I love how it complements the whole conversation that you've got in the book. Dr. Laura, thank you again so much for being a part of the Super Fantastic Exchange. This conversation was super, really is thought-provoking, and I'm going to go back and watch this again just simply because so good. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Super Fantastic Exchange. Please go follow Dr. Laura on LinkedIn, on all other social medias. Grab a copy of this book, because I promise you it is an incredibly thought-provoking book about human capital and the human experience and a company. Is just amazing. Thank you again, and we will see you on the next episode of the Super Fantastic Exchange. We'll see you guys.
Thanks, Gary.